He watched her with an inscrutable expression, a cocktail of concern and exasperation. You keep avoiding the conversation, Sefina. It's like you think if you circle the room enough times, the truth will disappear. Sefina paused mid-step, her fingers brushing against the canvas of a half-finished painting leaning against the wall blooms of color striving for escape. How can I trust words when your actions whisper secrets to the night? She shot back, her voice trembling yet fierce, echoing the clash of the tempest outside. Zaire's jaw tightened, the muscles working hard to suppress his frustration. My actions? You're the one shut away like a moth in a cocoon, afraid to unfold your wings. He pushed away from the counter, closing the distance between them. The air crackled as he added, Tell me, what are you so afraid of? Sefina's breath caught in her throat. She felt exposed, tangled in vulnerability, yet desperately sought the strength to defend her fears. I'm afraid of being hurt again, she admitted, her voice softer now but no less charged. You've built this fortress of trust around yourself. It's beautiful and terrifying. It's so easy for you. Easy, Zaire scoffed, his frustration simmering just below the surface. You think I wear this armor because it's comfortable? I did it to protect what little I have left. His eyes flickered with intensity, inviting her to see the storm behind his stoic front. Or maybe you wear it because you're too afraid to let anyone in, she countered, stepping closer, challenging him with her presence. His expression softened as he continued, You think my past doesn't haunt me? That I don't lie awake some nights, hating what I've done? He dropped his gaze, the weight of his confessions evident. But I made a choice. I chose to help you, even if you didn't know it was me. A frown creased her forehead. You think that makes things better? That your helpful hand can erase your secrets? You've taken from me before, Zaire. I'm not sure I can accept anything more. And just like that, the storm outside exploded, a deafening crack of thunder resonating through the room, drowning out the silence between them. Zaire's heart raced. He took a step forward, body tense as he searched her eyes for a sign, a sliver of understanding. The air grew electric and charged with unspoken words. Look at me, he urged, his voice low and firm, yet filled with warmth as he placed a hand gently on her arm. I will never betray you. Every decision I've made has been about protecting you. But to do that, you need to trust me. At the touch of his hand on her skin, an undeniable warmth crystallized in her chest, and her breath hitched, the argument faltering at the edges. Trust is a fragile thing, Zaire, she whispered. He stepped even closer, lowering his voice, intimate and sincere. We can build it together. Just tell me what you need. For a moment, Sefina felt as if the storm had blown away, revealing vulnerabilities she dared not voice until now. I need to know how we can move past this, Zaire. I can't keep being scared that you'll run when the going gets tough. The corners of Zaire's mouth curled into a soft grin, a light breaking through the heaviness, the laughter of earlier reverberating faintly. You have to understand, he teased lightly. Running isn't my strong suit. More of a stand-and-fight kind of guy. Like a knight, but without the shiny armor. Sefina couldn't help but chuckle, the tension easing ever so slightly. A knight who needs to accept that he's not invincible. He leaned closer still, mirth dancing in his eyes. Guess that makes you the valiant princess, then, ready to unsheath a sword of dialogue and hack through our trust issues. The laughter hung between them, but as her gaze flickered to his lips, the laughter dissolved, replaced by a deeper current tethering their souls, a shared reckoning. Maybe we can both learn to wield our swords, she said softly, her voice a whisper that filled the storm's silence, holding the weight of their confessions. Scene 12, Unexpected Visitors. The storm clouds lingered reluctantly in the distance, their shadows retreating as beams of sunlight pierced through the remaining gloom. Sefina stood on the weathered porch of the beach house, a mug of chamomile tea warming her hands. Each sip was a stolen moment of calm, a reminder that the chaos of life could sometimes be held at bay, if only for an instant. Zaire, busy in the kitchen, called out, Did you hear that? Sounds like more than just the ocean. Probably just the wind. Sefina replied, though unease fluttered in her chest. She set her cup down, staring at the splintered wood beneath her feet, memories clashing, her past and Zaire's presence now part of the same narrative, one neither could outrun. The tension in the atmosphere echoed the tumult in her heart, and as she turned, Zaire stepped out through the screen door, a sleek silhouette against the brightening sky. "Right?" he said, voice tinged with skepticism. "The wind doesn't knock on doors." Sefina rolled her eyes, a smirk teasing her lips even as anxiety twisted her stomach. "You've watched too many horror movies." "Someone's coming," he replied, frowning slightly as he scanned the horizon, icy confidence returning. "Let's get inside." As they slipped into the house, the warmth inside did nothing to thaw the chill creeping in. Zaire locked the door with a practiced ease, each click echoing in the silence like a hammer on steel. "Who do you think it is?" Sefina asked, her playful demeanor flickering. His eyes narrowed, shifting toward a window where the sunlight barely managed to chase away the remnants of shadow. "I don't know, but I can't take chances." "Don't be paranoid," she teased, though her voice lost some of its luster. "It's probably just a lost tourist looking for a nice view." "Or someone looking for trouble," Zaire countered, his dark features hardening. "Stay here." "Like that's gonna happen," she laughed weakly, following him through the narrow hall. He shot her a pointed glance over his shoulder. "This isn't a game, Sefina. We can't let our guard down." "Yeah," she said, folding her arms defensively. "Just like you didn't let your guard down the night we had that discussion about your big plans or my secrets." His words cut through the air, laden with unspoken resentment that lingered between them like stale smoke. "Both," Sefina snapped, irritation bubbling. "You always think you can shield me from the truth. And you think you can just brush everything off with your art and ignore reality?" The friction in their voices ignited the atmosphere, tension so thick it practically hummed. Suddenly, a pounding erupted against the door, fracturing their argument. "Zaire, open up! Stay back!" Zaire hissed, every muscle taut as he instinctively pushed Sefina behind him. "Who the hell is that?" she whispered urgently. "Acquaintance," he hissed through clenched teeth, stepping towards the door, knuckles white as he grasped the handle. "Acquaintance?" Sounded more like a freight train. Sefina shot back, panic rising with every second that passed in silence. The voice from outside persisted, desperation laced with a hint of anger. "I know you're in there. This isn't a joke." Zaire's gaze hardened as he glanced back at Sefina, the vulnerability from earlier replaced by a steely determination. "I'll handle this. You go." "No," she interrupted firmly. "If this is a problem, I'm not just going to hide." A terse silence filled the space between them, the atmosphere thickening with unsaid words. They both understood the gravity of vulnerability and the choice that lay before them, not just between strength and fear, but between trust and betrayal. "Fine," he conceded, eyes locking onto hers, "but stick close." With a resolute nod, they both moved toward the door, hands grazing in that fleeting way that instantly sparked a smoldering warmth beneath the tension. Zaire took a breath, bracing himself. On three. Sefina stepped closer, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling in the charged moment. 1, 2, 3. Zaire swung open the door, revealing a figure against the now brighter sky. An unexpected visitor who carried secrets of their own, throwing Sefina and Zaire into a storm far worse than they could have ever imagined. "Looks like you weren't ready for company," the stranger smirked, eyes darting mockingly between them. "Need a hand?" Scene 13. Kidnapped by shadows. The hum of the late afternoon city buzzed around them, a symphony of honking horns and distant laughter, but Sefina Agbo barely registered it. She stood at the edge of Zaire Oladipo's office door, arms crossed tightly against her chest, every muscle tensed. The wall behind her felt like a fortress, but it did little to shield her from the heated atmosphere between them. A flickering fluorescent light overhead cast her features in sharp relief, accentuating the worry in her deep brown eyes. "What do you mean you're busy?" Sefina's voice sliced through the tension, a blend of frustration and disbelief. Zaire stepped forward, his hands running through his hair, a habitual gesture when he was on edge. "I have a meeting, Sefina. If I don't handle this..." "Handle what?" She interrupted, her tone sharpening, embodying a whirlwind of emotions. "Your criminal dealings? Or is this a meeting over lunch with your shady colleagues?" He clenched his jaw, the underlying pang of jealousy rising within him, transforming his warm demeanor into an icy stare. "That's not fair, and you know it." "Fair?" It's not fair that I'm the one left here wondering if I'm next on a hit list because I saw something I wasn't supposed to. She stepped away from the door, her heels clicking against the polished floor as she paced like a caged lioness ready to spring. You practically threw me into this world, Zaire. In an instant, Zaire crossed the room, his long strides devouring the distance between them. And I'm trying to protect you, Sefina. What more do you want from me? His voice was low but laced with urgency, a storm brewing beneath his calm. I want you to choose, she blurted out, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Choose between this life, your dark world filled with secrets, and me. The air between them sparked with tension, thick like fog. Zaire's eyes burned with intensity, a mixture of frustration and something deeper, something he had buried under layers of duty and obligation. You think it's that simple? I protect you from a world that would crush you in an instant. Do you have any idea what I'm up against? Sefina stopped, her breath hitching. The truth behind his words hung in the air, heavy like unspoken promises. She narrowed her eyes, resisting the urge to cry despite the swell of emotions threatening to engulf her. And what about what I want? I can't live life in the shadows, Zaire. Isn't that what we both deserve? He reached out, his fingers brushing against her arm. The moment was electric. Heat spread like wildfire from his touch, even as the weight of their argument pressed down like an anchor. You make it sound like you can just walk away from this. Can't you see? I'm already knee-deep, and it's suffocating. She turned away, bumping into the desk, papers spilling like leaves in an autumn wind. The chaos mirrored her inner turmoil. Then let me help you. Zaire's voice softened, a desperate edge creeping in as he stepped closer, invading her space, the poised danger of his presence both comforting and daunting. Sefina looked up, her heart racing as their gazes locked. You mean help me dive deeper into a world I never wanted to join? Is that really helping? Damn it, he exclaimed, frustration exploding like a flare in the darkness. I'm doing everything I can to keep you safe, to keep the people I care for alive. But sometimes it means. His words faltered, trailing off into uncharted territory between them. Means what, Zaire? She pushed, urgency woven into the edges of her voice. Sometimes it means keeping my distance, he confessed, his breath shaky, a confession both raw and released. I can't allow you to get caught in this mess. We can't pull the thread without unraveling everything. She stepped back, a world of distance formed between them despite the closeness of their bodies. And keeping your distance is supposed to make me feel safe? No, but it's necessary, he said, resignation creeping into his tone. At that moment, Sefina's defenses shattered. I'm tired of safe. I'm tired of being alone. The walls she'd built grew thin under the weight of her words. Without thinking, Zaire's hand moved to her cheek, lifting her gaze to his. The heat radiated between them, tempered by the chaos of their lives. You're not alone. You never were. The depth of his promise enveloped her, a calming force amid the storm. The world outside blurred into insignificance as they stood there, a heavy silence stretching, fraught with unvoiced confessions. Before she could respond, the shrill ring of her phone broke the moment, cutting through the air like a dagger. They both jumped, reality crashing back in. Don't answer it, Zaire urged, urgency clawing at his tone. I have to. Sefina's resolve hardened, but deep within her, a flicker of fear ignited. Promise me you'll be careful, he murmured, drawing her in with his gaze once again. I always am, she lied, the words tasting bitter on her tongue, for the shadows were closing in, and she didn't know if this would be the last time she stood on solid ground. Scene 14, Rescue Mission. The streets of Echo Ridge buzzed with a restless energy, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and the distant, intoxicating aroma of spicy street food. Vibrant neon signs blinked overhead, their light flickering like a last gasp of hope against the deepening dusk. Zaire Oladipo maneuvered through the throng with a purposeful stride, his senses honed, instincts aflame. Every face he passed was a potential threat. Every shadow had its own sinister intention. The weight of his duty sat heavily on his shoulders, fueling the clench of his jaw and the tension in his muscles. He reached the alley behind the Velvet Orchid, Sefina's latest gig, where she performed her spoken-word pieces raw, unfiltered glimpses into the depths of her soul. The laughter that drifted from the bar to the street felt foreign now, piercing the pervasive gloom around him. But tonight, that laughter turned bitter. Laughter had become a mask. He had to find her. As Zaire ducked into the alley, the world narrowed. A familiar light glowed through a cracked window, illuminating Sefina's fragile figure huddled near it, while several men loomed menacingly over her. Their voices were low and treacherous, dripping with sarcasm. One scoffed, "What's the artist doing here?" "Time to pay the price for snooping around, sweetheart." His heart raced, and each beat echoed in his ears like a tribal drum of war. Zaire's pulse quickened at the realization that she was trapped, her sanctuary invaded. "This ends now," he muttered under his breath, taking a moment to gather his resolve. Every instinct screamed at him to charge in, but he needed to be clever, calculated. He would never forgive himself if he endangered her. With a swift hand, Zaire grabbed a nearby trash can and sent it crashing against the alley wall. The resounding clang startled both Sefina and her captors. "What was that?" one of the men barked, turning sharply toward the sound. Zaire seized the moment, stepping out from behind the wall, his tall, commanding figure cloaked in the afterglow of the city's neon lights. "Hey, how about you back off and leave her alone?" He maintained a steady, level tone, though inside, a tempest raged. Sefina met his gaze, a flicker of disbelief dancing in her expressive eyes. "Zaire, I?" "No words, just trust me," he said, cutting her off as the tension in the air thickened. He moved deliberately, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to launch into action. The men hesitated, assessing this unexpected threat. A thin man with slicked back hair leaned closer to Sefina, tauntingly whispering, "You think he can save you? This isn't a fairy tale, darling." His dismissive laughter echoed harshly, drowning in the flickering sound of neon rain. Zaire's eyes darkened. "Fairy tales might be a stretch, but let's see how your story ends." He lunged forward with surprising agility, his fist connecting with the thin man's jaw. A satisfying crack echoed, drawing gasps as he staggered back, momentarily dazed. With her captor disoriented, Zaire reached for Sefina, his fingers wrapping around her wrist, grounding her, igniting a swell of fierce protectiveness and longing within him. "Come on," he urged, urgency woven into his tone. Sefina's breath hitched, a mix of fear and a thrill of adrenaline racing through her. "Zaire, the others—" "I've got this," Zaire said, glancing at the remaining two men who were recovering. "We need to move." With that, he pulled her with him, weaving through the narrow alley, the labyrinth of Echo Ridge's secrets, a mere backdrop to their pulse-pounding escape. As adrenaline surged through her veins, Sefina felt both terrified and exhilarated. The safety of Zaire's presence was intoxicating. "How do you always get yourself into these messes?" she teased breathlessly, trying to lighten the moment even as tension dripped from the air. "Me? I was trying to save you, remember?" Zaire shot back, a small smirk pulling at the corners of his mouth, a brief interlude of laughter amid the chaos. Finally, they burst into the open street, the night alive with bustling life. Zaire halted, turning toward her, the weight of the moment enveloping them like a shroud. There was a wildness in his eyes, a turbulent storm waiting to crash. "Sefina," he breathed, drawing closer. The world around them faded, leaving only the sound of their racing hearts. "You mean more to me than you could ever know." As he spoke, he reached up, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered, sending electric sparks down her spine. Before she could respond, he captured her lips with his, a gentle yet fervent press that ignited every thought, every doubt into flames. Time stood still as passion unfurled, his warmth enveloping her, sparking a memory of someone who saw her not just as an artist, but as a woman of strength and depth. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the kiss broke off, and reality came rushing back, urgent, bitter. Zaire stepped back, his eyes still locked on hers, waiting for her response. "Did you really just kiss me while people are trying to get us?" she asked playfully, her heart still racing from both fear and exhilaration. "Did you have any better ideas?" He replied with a lopsided grin, the shadow of danger still looming but momentarily pushed aside. As they stood there in the chaotic streets of Echo Ridge, the night shifting around them like an uncharted sea of possibilities, Sefina felt the weight of either rescue or peril, the two sides of their unfolding saga. There was laughter, even in sorrow. A deep understanding sprouted among shadows. Scene 15, a hidden ledger. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting a soft amber glow that filtered through the tall windows of the warehouse. It illuminated the dusty shelves lined with forgotten artifacts and crates, now transformed into a makeshift office. Sefina stood by a cluttered table, the tension in her shoulders palpable as she fidgeted with the edge of a worn ledger. Zaire leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his expression a mix of concern and something more inscrutable. "What did you find?" His voice held a careful edge, barely masking the intensity in his gaze. Sefina looked up, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. "This," she said, holding the ledger at an awkward angle as if it might explode. There are names here, Zaire. Names I didn't expect. Associates who've been too close for comfort." He pushed off from the door, taking a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "Those are just business connections, Sefina. They mean nothing in the context of—" "Business connections?" she interrupted, her voice rising. "That's a comforting way to dismiss it. You can't seriously think I'd buy that. Not after everything." His jaw clenched as he approached, the air thick with unsaid words and the tension of unspoken history. "No one has ever understood the weight of my world, He hesitated, searching for clarity. "The dangerous game that comes with it." Sefina felt her heart race, caught between her instinct to retreat and the magnetic pull of his presence. "What game are we playing, Zaire? I thought we were on the same side. Yet—" She turned the ledger around, revealing a list of intertwined names linked to dubious dealings. "Yet I find this." He ran a hand through his dark curls, frustration flickering in his eyes. "It's not what you think," he murmured, stepping closer. The warmth that emanated from him was both inviting and unsettling. "What is it, then?" "Enlighten me," she shot back, though there was a tremor in her voice that belied her bravado. Zaire's posture softened a fraction, and he reached out, fingers brushing against the ledger. "Pay attention to the context. The stakes here are life or death." There was a depth to his words, a fierce protectiveness that stirred something deep within her. "They're not just stakes, Zaire. They're people's lives," she replied, the challenge clear in her eyes. Yet as she spoke, the warmth of his touch lingered where it had made contact. Her breath caught. "That's the point." He moved even closer now, a few inches separating them, an invisible tether between honesty and deception. "I'm trying to protect people, no matter the cost." Sefina felt the rush of emotions swirl within her, a tempest of anger and admiration. "At what cost, Zaire? My trust? I can't just stand by while you navigate this." She was betraying her feelings with each word, the tremor in her voice betraying the steel facade she struggled to maintain. His gaze locked onto hers, the room shrinking around them, every unsaid confession hanging in the air like the dust motes caught in the fading light. "Sefina, I need you to understand that sometimes the choices I make, they're not about me. They're about ensuring that you and others can live without fear." For a moment, the world outside faded. She could feel his breath, a gentle warmth against the cool evening air, and her resolve began to falter like the last light of the day. "But if you told me the truth," she whispered, grounding herself against the rising tide of vulnerability, "then you might find it harder to love me." He stepped closer, the tip of his fingers tracing the edge of the ledger, a bold intimacy mingling with the uncertainty of their entangled fates. "Lies can protect, but I want to be honest with you." "Do you?" she breathed. "You think honesty would change anything?" A beat passed, the air thick with tension and underlying desire. "Knowing you is worth the risk." His voice dropped, softer now, almost tender. "But I also know I'm a complex man who comes with a lot of baggage you didn't sign up for." Before she could respond, he leaned in, closing the distance between them, all remnants of their argument dissolving. His lips brushed against hers softly, a hesitant exploration that ignited a firestorm of emotions, passion, fear, hope. Sefina melted into him, the ledger forgotten, her resolve swept away in the intoxicating promise of his kiss. The world outside disappeared as they lingered there, lost in the moment, each drop of tension replaced by an electric connection that vibrated throughout her entire being. As they pulled apart, hearts racing, she searched his eyes. "This could change everything," she whispered. "Let it," he replied, that alluring spark of defiance gleaming in his gaze. "Let it." Scene 16, Trust and Betrayal. In the shadowed corners of Zaire Oladipo's private club, the air was thick with a cocktail of expensive cigars and the lingering hints of musk from leather chairs that had seen better days. The walls, an inky black, were adorned with art that looked almost apologetic in its beauty-vivid canvases, portraying bold street scenes that matched the heartbeat of the city outside. Flickering lights cast dancing shadows, mirroring the tension that crackled between Zaire and Sefina. Sefina Agbo leaned against a marble column, her posture a portrait of poise, yet her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her crimson blouse, betraying her anxiety. "So which one of your gold-plated friends is the rat?" she asked, her voice steady but slightly muffled by the volume of conversation that surged around them. Zaire's dark gaze flicked to hers, weighing the moment. "I don't know yet, but I can feel it. Something is off. I've kept this city in line, and now it feels like I'm standing on a tightrope, all of them ready to cut the strings." His voice, a whisper against the clamor, matched the fire in his expression. "Zaire?" Sefina pressed. "These are your people. You've built this empire, yet you trust them to shoulder your secrets?" "Loyalty is earned, not granted," he replied, a slight smile curving his lips, though his eyes reflected his inner turmoil. "Besides, I don't think you ever believed I'd be this successful. Remember your initial judgments?" A teasing laugh bubbled from her, the kind that felt foreign in such a strained atmosphere. "Oh, you can't pin that on me. I merely pointed out that your catering menu needed more than just mahogany and leather." "True," he said, giving her a sidelong glance that held a mix of admiration and amusement. "But it was all part of the facade, the art of deception." The laughter faded as they both realized the weight of their words. "You're telling me you've played the part of a crime boss all these years," she said, her eyes narrowing. "And that's what will keep you safe? I thought we were supposed to be honest with each other." Zaire's expression darkened. "You know about my past. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. People will come for you if I show them the vulnerable side of me." "Then, let's be vulnerable together." Sefina stepped closer, the warmth of her presence a breath of fresh air in the suffocating tension. "If you trust me, you'd share the truth." He held her gaze, their proximity igniting a flicker of intimacy, a spark hauntingly palpable. "What's there to share that hasn't torn me apart already? Do you want the sordid details of my life? Just say the word and I'll lay it all bare." For a brief moment, Sefina's heart raced and she swallowed hard. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, perhaps more for her own assurance than for his. Leaning forward, she whispered, "Maybe you should be scared of what you might find in me." That flicker shifted, evolving into something dense and fraught with tension. Just then, the door swung open, cutting through their moment of vulnerability as one of Zaire's associates strode in, a glimmer of unease tracing his expression. "Boss," he said, his voice thin, like creaking floorboards. "We have a situation." A cloud of seriousness closed in, shifting the atmosphere from laced humor to dread. "What kind of situation?" Zaire said, his brows knitting together. "It's about Marcus. He's been talking to them." The informant hesitated, then pressed on. "He's mixed up with the West Side crew." Sefina stepped back, her heart thudding in her chest. "The ones who?" "Yes," Zaire interjected, cutting her off. "These are the people I shielded you from. The last thing I need is him spilling your name. I trusted you." The rawness of Sefina's vulnerability hung in the air, bold and stark. "You said we'd get through this together." "And trust works both ways, Sefina." Zaire snapped, fingers running through his hair, his frustration bubbling over. "You think I wanted this? I'm fighting for you, trying to keep you safe, even when I'm practically drowning in betrayal." She met his fierce stare, and in that moment, the accusation was clear. "What about your betrayal?" "Enough." Zaire's voice thundered, shaking the very foundation of their trust. The world around them fell silent, and in that terrifying stillness, the question lingered. Could they survive the weight of their entangled fates, or was their bond just another illusion poised to shatter? "Zaire," Sefina said, her voice a softer echo, "we need to uncover the truth, together." He studied her with a gaze that was both fierce and tender, realizing that the stakes had risen and the walls around him were inching closer. "Then let's start pulling back the layers." As their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passed between them, sealing a pact more potent than words. To discover the truth in trust, and face the haunting shadows that threatened to engulf them. Scene 7: The Truth. In the quiet aftermath of a storm, Sefina Agbo found herself perched on the edge of Zaire Oladipo's sleek black leather sofa, idly flipping through pages of an old sketchbook. The warm amber glow from the single lamp in the corner bathed the room in soft hues, accentuating the rich mahogany furniture and the stark white walls adorned with the vibrant strokes of her past creativity. She traced her fingers over a drawing of a phoenix, its wings stretching majestically, embodying rebirth. Her heart raced, echoing the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Zaire moved about the kitchen, the clink of porcelain and the hiss of a kettle intermingling with the gentle flicker of uncertainty that filled the air. For all his fierce confidence, the tension in his posture revealed that today was not just for tea and sketches. It was time for confrontation. Sefina, Zaire's voice cut through the silence, steady and deep. Are you sure you want to have this conversation? Yes, Sefina replied, her voice stronger than she felt. The kettle whistled, and Zaire turned off the heat. He poured the steaming liquid into 2 mugs, the fragrant steam curling upwards, filling the space between them with the scent of chamomile, a taste of calm before the storm. Then we need to talk about you, Zaire said, placing a mug down in front of her. The warmth radiated through the ceramic, but she left it untouched, her gaze fixed firmly on him. What are you afraid of? What am I afraid of? She echoed, heart pounding as she leaned forward, emboldened by the proximity. I'm afraid of you, Zaire. I watch you operate in darkness, and I'm still here, but I need to know, what is your life outside these walls? Who are you, really? The silence that followed was deafening, thick with unasked questions and a myriad of unspoken truths. Zaire rubbed the back of his neck, his shoulders tense as he faced her. You know, I've done things I'm not proud of. I've stepped into shadows to protect people. It's a part of who I am. Protect or hide behind your choices, she shot back, her voice sharp with emotion. You keep saying it's about doing what's right, but I need you to be honest with me for once. Your secrets, Zaire. They could destroy everything between us. With that, the air thickened, charged with electricity. Zaire stepped closer, the warmth of his presence enveloping her like a cloak. You deserve to know the truth, but I can't promise it will be easy. His dark eyes bore into hers, a storm brewing within their depths. Some truths break you. Then let them break me. I can't stand being in the dark. A hint of desperation laced her words, her vulnerability spilling over as she met his unwavering gaze. Anything is better than living with doubt. His expression softened for a moment, and in that flicker of vulnerability, she saw the man beneath the steely exterior, the protector, the enigma, the soul intertwined with her own. Zaire reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the touch igniting a spark between them. For all my darkness, I'll always want to keep you in the light, he murmured, the words rolling off his tongue like sweet honey. But there are pieces of my life that I don't know if I can share. Then start small, Sefina suggested, her heart racing. Tell me about the first time you chose this life. Zaire inhaled deeply, the moments hanging suspended between them like an unsung melody. It started with a choice, a wrong choice, and the desire to protect those I loved. His voice dipped lower, heavy with regret, but it eventually turned into a burden. And you don't want to drag me into that burden, she realized, her voice quieter now, the weight of understanding settling in the air like fine dust. But loving you is already a choice I've made, Zaire. He hesitated, the flicker of a smile faintly gracing his lips. You've made some poor choices, sweet Sefina. Like the time I ordered anchovies on our pizza? She leaned in, a fragile laughter breaking the tension, her eyes sparkling despite the gravity of their conversation. I still have nightmares about that. He chuckled, momentarily easing the heaviness hanging over them. She savored the sound of his laughter, the warmth radiating through their shared space. As she reached for the mug of tea again, she felt the intensity of his gaze lingering on her. The moment seemed to stretch, the air thick with unspoken longings. Their eyes locked, and the world outside faded. He moved impossibly closer, the distance evaporating. As the tension built, he leaned in, their breaths mingling. Sefina, he whispered. Then, just as their lips were about to meet, the weight of reality crashed back in. The truth loomed like an iron gate between them, casting shadows that threatened to tear them apart. And the truth? She asked breathlessly, unsure whether she wanted to hear what lay ahead. Is complicated. As the kiss lingered just out of reach, they both understood. Sometimes the hardest battles were fought in silence, and the echoes of their choices still danced between them, waiting to spill over. Scene 18, a glimmer of hope. The rain drummed against the window panes of Zaire's penthouse like a silent metronome, each drop a reminder of the chaos waiting outside. Dim light flickered from candles placed along the mantel, casting soft shadows across the room, their gentle glow softening the sharp lines of the urban landscape below. Sefina Agbo found herself at the edge of a plush navy sofa, her fingers nervously toying with the fabric, as if seeking comfort in its familiar texture. She inhaled the rich aroma of espresso mingled with a hint of sandalwood from the incense burning nearby, holding on to the familiar scents as if they could tether her to this moment. Zaire stepped into the flickering light, the deep shadows of the room brushing against his form. "You look like you could use a distraction," he said, his voice low and smooth, though an edge of tension laced through it. He held a steaming mug, offering it to her with a small, encouraging smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Do you have any good tricks up your sleeve, or is this just a caffeine delivery?" Sefina quipped, the corner of her mouth tugging upward in recognition of their shared humor. Zaire sat beside her, the couch sinking slightly under his weight. "Let's call it a 2-for-1 special," he replied, a playful glint in his dark eyes. The air thickened with an unspoken connection, the silence wrapping around them like a warm blanket. The chaos outside faded, leaving only the two of them, cocooned in a bubble built from shared glances and reluctant smiles. As she sipped the espresso, the bittersweet warmth coursed through her, somewhat dissipating the storm brewing within. "You know, for a crime boss, you make a mean cup of coffee," she teased, raising an eyebrow. Zaire chuckled softly, the sound rich and comforting. "I need my powers of persuasion to extend beyond the boardroom. Coffee is just one of my many talents." He gestured out to the rain-soaked skyline. "And here I thought I'd have to play the villain for you tonight." "No worries," Sefina replied, the laughter still lingering in her voice. "I've handled far worse." She set the mug down and turned toward him, her expression shifting. "Though I have to ask, how does someone as formidable as you end up rescuing a damsel like me?" "Rescue?" Zaire leaned forward, intrigued. "Are you saying you don't need saving?" "I mean, just look at me, a hopeful artist in shambles," she said, her tone turning more serious, the laughter fading like smoke. "You must be rolling your eyes at my calamities. You have it all figured out." Her vulnerability hung heavy in the air, and he could feel it wrap around them both. "No," Zaire said firmly, his gaze steady. "You're more resilient than you realize, and it's not about having it all figured out. It's about finding your way through the complications." The room grew silent, the tension electrifying. She could see the weight he carried, the vulnerabilities hidden behind that confident facade. He was a fortress, standing strong, yet she recognized the cracks in his armor. Moments stretched as they stared into each other's eyes, each heartbeat a whisper of the chaos outside. Suddenly, Zaire closed the distance between them, leaning in, their breaths mingling as he whispered, "You don't have to be perfect. Just be you." His voice was thick with meaning, each word resonating in the pause that followed. Before she could respond, he reached out, brushing a stray curl behind her ear, the warmth of his touch lingering like the rain against glass. "Sefina," he paused, his eyes darkening with unsaid words, emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "Sefina," he began again, his voice a more intimate whisper now. "Don't underestimate your strength. You are stronger than anyone I know, and if you ever feel lost, I'll be right here." His sincerity washed over her, drawing her ever closer. "Even if it means dealing with my chaotic life?" she teased, but her smile belied the seriousness of her question. "Especially then," Zaire replied, his own smile softening the intensity of his gaze, like a candle flickering bravely against the dark. The moment felt fragile yet electric, charged with possibilities, as their worlds intertwined in silent understanding, the chaos outside melding with the unexpected calm between them as tiny hints of hope began to glimmer in the shadows. Scene 19, Love on the Edge. The evening sky hung heavy with storm clouds, a dense curtain of gray that froze the world in anticipation. Wind whipped through the narrow alley, carrying the scent of rain-soaked concrete and distant spices from the street vendors' stalls. Sefina Agbo pressed her back into the cold brick wall, heart pounding like a drum echoing in her ears. Zaire Oladipo stood close beside her, a towering presence cloaked in shadows, eyes scanning the periphery for threats. The dim glow of a flickering neon sign barely illuminated his sharp features, casting a mosaic of light and dark across his face, emphasizing the tension that coiled between them. "Sefina," he murmured, voice low and measured, his eyes still darting. "Do you think they saw us?" "I don't know," she replied breathlessly, her voice scarcely louder than the rustle of leaves caught in the wind. Time stretched, suspended in a moment that felt electric, fraught with danger and possibility. Her gaze flickered to his, seeking reassurance amid suspense. Zaire turned to her, his presence warm despite the chill in the air. "Stay close." He leaned in slightly, the intimacy of his breath sending a shiver down her spine. Flickering emotions danced behind her uncertainty. They were trapped in a perilous moment, the air thick with unspoken words. "Close?" she echoed, half-heartedly teasing, attempting to dispel the tension as if humor could shield them from the outside world. "What's your plan? We'll get caught in a runaway embrace?" A flicker of mischief crossed his gaze, though the seriousness of their situation clung to him like a second skin. "If that gets us out of this mess, then maybe I'm all for it." Before she could respond, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed through the alley-hard shoe soles against the uneven pavement. Zaire's demeanor shifted instantly, the lightness of the moment severed as he instinctively pulled her closer. The close quarters felt suffocating, yet comforting, his body shielding hers from the encroaching darkness. "Sefina," he murmured again, this time more urgently, "I need you to trust me, no matter what happens next." Her heart raced at his words, not just from fear but from the weight of his request. Trust was a currency she had guarded closely. "You don't know what you're asking," she whispered, feeling exposed, vulnerable. Yet there was something in Zaire's eyes, a promise wrapped in steel that compelled her to lean into him. "I know," he replied, rolling his shoulders, an indication of strain beneath his calm demeanor. "But right now, your safety matters more than all that." In this moment, the storm above seemed to pause as tension pooled between them, charged like electricity before a crack of thunder. With every breath, her resolve wavered, his proximity deepening the inexplicable bond they shared. "What if we don't make it out?" Silence fell between them, laden with unspoken fears. He tilted her chin gently, eyes steady and unwavering. "Then I want you to know, you're worth fighting for, Sefina." The sincerity of his words enveloped her, eclipsing the outside noise. It was as if time collapsed around them, creating a cocoon in which their fears, their pasts, faded against the ferocity of the present. For the first time, the dark secrets that loomed over them felt smaller, almost manageable under the weight of possibility. A shiver of longing coursed through her. "You make it sound like I don't have any say in it." "Because you do," he challenged lightly. "But don't fight this right now. Let the world wait. Let us wait. Just for a moment." With that, the barrier holding back their emotions finally broke. As raindrops began to fall, an unexpected softness lifted her heart, a realization buried beneath anxiety surfaced, crackling with warmth as she grasped his shirt. "Hiding out in an alley is not exactly romantic, you know." Zaire chuckled quietly, the sound rich and warm against the cool drizzle, like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. "If it makes you feel any better, I find your choice of hiding places surprisingly charming." "Charming, huh?" she teased lightly, lips curving into a smile, her worries momentarily forgotten. "Then I should start charging for guided tours." His gaze softened, and for a heartbeat, she could see another reality stretching before them, a safe space, free from danger, where laughter enveloped them like a cocoon. "I'd pay handsomely." The world outside faded further, leaving just the two of them in a cloud of silent camaraderie, their breath mingling in the cold air, hearts racing in shared song. "Well then," she said, challenge sparking in her eyes, "I guess we'd better make the most of our tour." As raindrops began to gather in earnest, cascading around them, Zaire leaned in, the line between vulnerability and strength so finely woven that she could barely discern where one ended and the other began. their breaths synchronized, a rhythm of urgency fueled by a surge of emotions. "Stay with me," he breathed, the whisper of his words like a promise. And as their foreheads touched, the world fell away, leaving only the safety of their shared presence and the trembling anticipation of a love unfolding on the edge of danger. Scene 20. Whispers in the dark. The moonlight streamed through the narrow gap in the curtains, illuminating the room in soft silvery hues. Zaire stood by the window, the cool air brushing against his skin as he stared into the night. The city below hummed with life, oblivious to the tempest brewing in his mind. His thoughts twisted like the shadows dancing across the walls, each one looping back to Sefina. He could feel her presence behind him, a potent mix of anxiety and warmth. The gentle rustle of fabric brushed against his ears as she shifted, the tantalizing scent of jasmine lingering in the air where she stood. He turned to meet her gaze, his heart pounding in response to the vulnerability flickering in her deep brown eyes. The weight of unsaid words hung between them, stretching taut like a tightrope. "Zaire, we need to talk," Sefina said, her voice barely above a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. Each syllable echoed an urgency he couldn't ignore. "Then let's talk," he replied, leaning back against the wall, crossing his arms in a casual facade that did little to mask his turmoil. "What's really on your mind?" She took a step closer, shifting the space between them with a deliberation that had him on edge. "I've been hiding things. When I thought I was healing, I was just building walls." The slight break in her voice streaked through him, twisting and tightening the coil of tension in the room. "There are parts of my past I can't ignore anymore." Her eyes flitted to the floor, and the sudden drop in her energy felt like a blow. Zaire softened, his body instinctually nudging toward her, creating an anchor in the storm. "Sefina, whatever it is, I can handle it. You know that?" "Can you?" She met his gaze again, her lip trembling slightly. "Can you handle the things I've done? The things I've let happen?" Zaire stepped closer, forcing her to confront the wall she'd cautiously constructed. "I'll take you as you are, not as you think you should be. Trust me." "There's no trust in honesty," she interrupted, a hint of defiance lighting her features like a candle's flicker. "What if I'm not strong enough for the truth?" "Then we face it together," he said, his voice steady, even as the wind outside howled like the anxious spirits of the city. "I don't want you to face anything alone anymore." She drew in a deep breath, the subtle swell of her chest inviting an intimacy that shimmered just below the surface. Zaire could sense the electrifying pull, the soaring promise of something beautiful laced with uncertainty. "Zaire, this isn't just about us," she murmured, her gaze falling to the space between them. He reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "But it could be," he countered softly, reveling in the warmth radiating from her skin, the pulse of connection thrumming in the air. "Let me prove it to you." For a moment, the world outside slid away. The night wrapped around them, holding them in the fragile pause before the storm. She leaned into his hand, the tension slackening ever so slightly. But then a flicker of doubt clouded her expression. "What if my truth ruins everything?" Her voice quivered like a fragile note, and just as light as hope, Zaire felt it crushing under the weight of something unsaid. "Then we rebuild, Sefina. That's how it works," he said, grounding his voice in sincerity as he studied her. "I want the real you, not the edited version." In that moment, time felt arrested, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. He could see the walls around her begin to tremble, the raw fear creeping in, testing the limits of their fragile intimacy. He took another step, enveloping them in the cocoon of his presence. "Zaire." Before the air could deepen with dread, he brushed his thumb across her cheek. Time unraveled as he leaned down, capturing her lips with his, a slow exploration rippling into their shared silence. Each kiss was a gentle rebellion against the darkness and uncertainty that threatened to consume them. He tasted the jasmine on her breath, a promise that twinkled like the stars above them, pulling them both into a world where just this moment existed. As they parted, their breath mingling in the cool air, Sefina's eyes searched his, a question lingering unvoiced. "What if I'm not ready for the beauty?" Zaire smiled gently, resting his forehead against hers, his heart full of fierce tenderness. "Then I'll wait for you, as long as it takes." He paused, a glimmer of joy breaking through the shadow. And if you ever need a reminder, just kiss me again. The night deepened, rich with decisions and unearthing truths, both of them bracing for the unfolding storm that was inevitable. Together, then, she finally whispered, sealing the pact between them, one draped in promise and shadows yet to be faced. Scene 21. Interference from the past. The air hummed with a warmth rarely found in the city, as Sefina Agbo leaned against the cool tile of her kitchen counter, meticulously chopping vibrant green onions with a knife that gleamed under the soft glow of overhead lights. The rhythmic clink of the knife against the wooden cutting board resonated like a soothing metronome. But her mind danced restlessly, swaying between daydreams and reality. Today marked 2 months since she'd truly begun to unravel the knots tethering her to past traumas. Courage fueled by hours spent with Zaire Oladipo, Mr. Tall, dark, and handsome, wrapped in an enigma.